luck, you might get a sound saying we were being recorded. Just checking that actually is, yes, it is recording. I didn't get the audio cue to let me know that it is. Okay, firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people, who are the traditional owners of the land that I'm coming to you from today, which is in Perth, Western Australia. And we pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. So I had a bit of fun with some tech things, making this look a bit kind of techy today. So I've gone with a bit of a TV show theme. So on today's show, we're going to look at an outline of basic tech setup that your group needs, talking about a little bit what other groups are using out there, thinking a bigger picture of what's really important. And I think sometimes we can get lost in the so many different tools that are out there that we maybe lose a bit of focus on what's actually important. I'm going to look for some low-hanging fruit on ways that we can just level up and get some quick wins out of some tech that's available. And we're going to delve a little bit into AI. And no doubt you've all heard of ChatGPT. I'm sure most of you had a little bit of a play of ChatGPT, but there's a whole lot more things out there that we can use today, and that's getting better and more interesting all the time. So this is me. I'm Rory Murray. I'm the operations lead at Town Team Movement. I have been involved in quite a few community groups over the years. Most recently, I suppose, I've been involved in Manning Town Team. So that's my local town team that I was part of founding a couple of years ago. Prior to that, I was involved, and I'm still involved as the secretary in the Manning Night Riders Cycling Club, which is incorporated. I have been involved in the Manning P&C when my kids were at school and primary school. So again, that was another incorporated community group. And I've been involved in many informal running and cycling groups over the years. So informal groups are one of these sort of examples that we can still consider them community groups. Often you don't see themselves that, but often they have the same kind of needs as more formal kind of groups. And of course, working at Town Team Movement and some other roles I've been in, we come across quite a lot of community groups. I think we've got 165. And prior to working in this sort of space in terms of community and not-for-profit, I used to work, and most of my career I've actually worked in IT.
Is it working?
All right. If I can hear a couple of bits of speaking there. If you are not on mute, I'll just ask you to put yourself on mute for the time being. All right, so what's Town Team Movement? Town Team Movement, so we're an independent, not-for-profit organisation based in Perth, started in Leederville late 2017. We're growing rapidly around, well, initially it was around Western Australia, now it's gone national, international. We've got, I think, about 165 registered town teams around the world now, most of those in Western Australia. A big part of that is regional Western Australia. But also, yeah, Eastern States, New Zealand, UK, Poland, and yeah, spreading around. So what's important to Town Team Movement? There's two aspects to what we do, really. So one of the things is really working with and supporting governments, local governments in particular, in sort of helping them, instead of doing so much to the community or for the community, with lesser focus on engagement, community engagement, feedback. We want to help them work more with the community and enable action by their communities to encourage active citizenship. So that's on the government side of things. On the citizen side of things, we like to focus on how do we help people, if they would like to move from being passive consumers into more active citizens. So we work with them as individual citizens, or what we like to call individual doers, and then we help work with them to become more active in their communities and leading inspiring change, positive change. Town Team Movement, as you saw in the diagram previously, has networks of town teams that we support. We work with some partners. RAC is our principal partner, has been on board for a number of years. And we have other partners such as Main Roads, Road Safety Commission, Department of Local Government, and numerous other really important partners that enable our work. We have a placemaking education platform where people can learn about placemaking, and we also have consulting services that work with often local governments, developers, and all sorts of people that special projects that allow us to do what we do. Act Local is what today's webinar is under the program of. Act Local is a Department of Communities funded program, and it's all about enabling flourishing communities and promoting active citizenship. It's all about empowering volunteers and what we call volunteer involving organisations. So those types of organisations like your own that actually work with volunteers and are supporting them. So we're trying to support volunteers and those VIOs, as they're called, to really empower their local communities through volunteering. And so we offer resources, networking opportunities. We're connecting people with funding opportunities like grants. We have real people that are actually doing support to community groups like yours. So particularly if you're in Wheatbelt, Pilbara, Kalgoorlie, Boulder regions, we'd love you to reach out and we can put you in touch with the local representatives that we have there. Okay, so that's our intros underway. This is a tech-related thing, so I just thought I'd throw an old school loading thing on there to get our head into the game of tech. So let's get underway. It's going to be a fast-paced journey. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with what are the minimum tech requirements that a community organizational group would need in 2025. There is obviously thousands and thousands of different tools out there. We want to try and keep that as simple as possible. What's the absolute basics that we think are expected nowadays? So I'm going to start with a little quote here. The rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. You may have heard that quote before, and no doubt you're going to tell me that it's not Paul McCartney that said it. Because we've been looking actually playing with this, who actually came up with that first. We think it may be Mark Twain. Anyhow, that quote refers to email, and I'm saying now that email is not dead. It's really still one of the key parts of what you need for your community group. You need some way to be contacted, and no doubt you don't want your phone ringing during the night from people that want to join your group or find out about what you do. So email is a really good starting point. Next thing is messaging. So email is a bit of seen as more of a formal type of thing, but I guess messaging is now the fast response type of platform that people want to use. So often people, especially younger people nowadays, don't like to make phone calls like they used to. So they want some type of way to send some text to you about what's happening, and often they'll get a response. You might also notice that in your community groups, how often do people check their emails? Sometimes that's a problem. It might be once a week, might be once every few days, but inevitably it's not as fast as some type of chat platform. I think also people see email as somewhat of a more formal channel and something that they use for work. If you're a community-based volunteer, you're probably trying to fit this around your work in little blocks of time that you have. Maybe it's catching the bus home from work or something like that, and you can access it on your phone. So messaging is often the way that people do that. And that's the downtime where people tend to get their volunteer work done. So that's number two, messaging. Number three is they need an online presence. So people say you pass someone in the street and you tell them about what you're up to, and then they'll go, oh, I'm sure I can find you online, right? So they will be expecting that they can find you and some information about you online. That might be a website, it might be a Facebook page, group, whatever, but they expect that there is some form of online presence, and that's how you can get yourself known. That's how, if you are creating events, that you get those events known to the general public, and that's how you can attract members, volunteers, etc., to your group. I put this little guy here because a lot of people kind of aren't really into having a website or having a social media presence or something. Do I have to? I think you do, actually. I think you need something online for people to be able to contact you, or you're really going to be struggling to get that stuff, get yourself known out there. So that's the first three. I think there's three more that I've come up with. One is what we group as productivity and collaboration tool. So by that I mean, back traditionally it'd be things like using Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Nowadays it's quite a bit bigger than that. it's, for things like your planning documents that you're going to put together an event on. So, and it's for things like online meetings, that are what we're doing now. This is Zoom is a collaboration tool. Um, and it's for things like contact lists. It sounds like a pretty rudimentary type of thing, but, who have you got involved in your group? At a basic level, you need a list of those people. Um, Cloud storage. Nowadays, I think it's a given that we need this. Not so long ago, we may have been using these things, the thumb drive. Now, I'm hoping that's not still the case, and I'm hoping you know why. Please don't use those except in, for short-term things that, let's just say that I've had too many stories from people that have lost crucial bits of information, particularly about their community groups, because it was all on a thumb drive that they handed to someone, and then the thumb drive got corrupted, or they lost it or something like that. So we really don't want that to happen, and there's some great cloud storage offerings out there for free in many cases. Okay, the sixth one is probably, it's crept into the mainstream the last few years, and that's design. So I guess people were somewhat sympathetic a few years ago to, you not having a logo for your community group, or not having nice looking flyers, and it's really just about text on a page on how you get your information out there. But nowadays, people don't like to see like this type of looking flyer. They look horrible, to be frank. And there are some tools that are quite easy to use, that make your stuff look sweet and look nice and look desirable to come along to. So the tools that are out there for that now, which we'll go into shortly, can help you make your community organization, your events, your initiatives look really presentable. So I think those are the six things. So we need email, we need some kind of messaging opportunity, we do need some kind of online presence. We need some productivity and collaboration tools to do some of this. We need to have our data stored somewhere in the cloud, not just on some hardware somewhere that might fail or get lost or get stolen. And we also need the stuff to look nice. So I think that's the absolute minimum of what's expected of our community groups nowadays in the tech space. Okay, moving on. So beyond the what's the minimum, what are other people using? So we come across hundreds of other groups, and we hear all the stories of what they're using. They are often asked us questions about what could I use to manage this. So I just wanted to share those experiences. Um, and what are they using? So for email, what they're using that I see mostly is Gmail, to be honest. I think that's the number one community-based kind of email that's free, that's easy to set up, that's it gives you the opportunity to create, my community group at gmail.com to give you an identity. You don't need to go into anything fancy like get your own domain name of buy your own .com.au and set that up and get an IT professional to do it. Just sign up for an email account and you've got an acceptable looking email account name. So there's not just Gmail in this space. Hotmail's been around forever as well. That's still around now. Often people would use things like Outlook, which as a platform, is a tool that you can use with Gmail, for example. But if you use, you can get your, say, an outlook.com email address, which typically you have to pay for. But we'll come back to that a little later as to why that's got its challenges of using something like that. Also, things like, their old iiNet or their bigpond.com email. Often this is like their personal email that they've dual purposed as their community group email. And when you're the founder of a community group, you might be the number one person that people know they need to contact, and that's all well and good. One of the things we'll talk about a little later is succession in your group, succession planning, and where that puts your group. If you're, Rory at bigpond.com is the well-known, email address for your community group. That takes some work to sort of shift people's thinking and start contacting a new email address if you move on from that role. So okay, so that's the email and what people are using. I think I give the gold medal there to Gmail. If that's what you're looking at, it's easy to use and it's used by the most number of groups out there. Messaging, what are people using? Quite a few different options. I think the top ones are probably WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and I think increasingly nowadays there's one called Discord. I'm not sure if you've heard of Discord. WhatsApp and Messenger, I think probably most of you would have at least one of those on your phone. Facebook gives you Messenger by default, even if you don't want it. And if you've got any kind of Facebook account and people want to contact you, that just automatically comes through Messenger, which personally I find quite annoying. Um, what are people using there? I think, oh, actually, the other thing I meant to mention, so Discord itself, if you haven't heard of it, is a little bit like WhatsApp, except it gives you the capability to add in different channels for different things. So my cycling group, we use Discord, and it's really easy to sort of create separate channels. So we, for example, as a cycling group, we might want to organize a ride any day of the week. So we've got a channel every day for something. So we've got a Monday channel, a Tuesday channel, a Wednesday channel. We've got a channel for every day of the week. So if you want to propose a ride on a Wednesday, you just go to the Wednesday channel and post a message there. And people know, hey, if I'm looking for a ride to go on next Wednesday, I go to the Wednesday channel and it'll be there. So it's easy to organize things in that way. We've also got like a committee channel, which we restrict access to those that are on our committee. It's an easy way to just have like private conversations within that. Um, so yeah, it's very powerful compared to a basic single kind of channel thing like Messenger or WhatsApp. You'll also notice I've just added the WhatsApp community there. It essentially creates something quite similar to Discord. That's a way to create multiple groups. So for example, another thing I'm involved in at the moment is organizing a festival. We've got a festival, like a core group of 6 or 7 of us that have got a chat around that. And we're talking about things like sponsorship dollars and budgets and booking in different things. The broader community aren't interested in those details. So what we're doing with that, so I'll just get someone to mute. Um, if you've got a broader audience that we want, so we would like to get any of the local business owners to be able to hear about stuff and potential people that are going to volunteer on the day. We're going to set up a different WhatsApp group for that. And then we create a broader, like an umbrella WhatsApp community for the whole thing. And that includes all the different groups within it. So we can broadcast one message across all those WhatsApp communities that are part of those subgroups. So that's definitely a level up for WhatsApp and interesting looking into. Just quickly reading some questions you've got here. Oh, local community garden uses Slack like Discord. Yeah, I've not really used Slack much, but yeah, I understand it's pretty similar. Someone's giving a thumbs up to WhatsApp communities. Discord having multiple channels is great, as we need 4 WhatsApp chats for another volunteer group I belong to. Yeah, if that's the case, definitely look into Discord. I think you'll find it's slightly it's quite slightly more difficult to learn, but it doesn't really take long. And once people get the hang of it, they love it, in my experience. So, is WhatsApp Communities a separate app? No, it's not. You can add, when you go add a group, I think nowadays the same place you add a group, you can also add a community. All right. So what would I give in that? I'd probably give the winner in my mind here to WhatsApp, because since they offered communities, it gives you that power to create something a little bit more powerful. Yeah, it's still, the usability is really good. Discord's awesome as well, but I think it's just slightly more complex. Now, if people join a Discord group, can they see the previous messages? That's a WhatsApp limitation. I think, Eliza, the answer is yes to that. I agree that that is limitation to WhatsApp, that if that chat's been around for a while, you only can see what's happened after you've joined the chat. I think that's the case. That's not the case on Discord, but I could be wrong. Okay, number 3, what are people using for an online presence? Inevitably, I think they're using Facebook in the first instance. So Facebook, either a Facebook group or a Facebook page or both. By using a Facebook page, it gives you a link that you can send to someone to go and follow us or like us, and then it's the equivalent of being able to give someone your website address to be able to go to find out more information. There are some challenges with that, unlike a website. Oops. Sorry, yeah, I'm pressing the wrong buttons here. Got to catch up with all my animations now. Yeah, the limitation with something like a Facebook page as opposed to a website is you can't store like too much information in the one spot. It's all just becomes like a bit of a streaming kind of channel of conversation that's hard to find. But the big thing I think that you do get with Facebook is the ability to create events. And nowadays, I think you can almost, if you're doing events on a regular basis, I think you almost can't not do Facebook events because so many people use it, so many people share it. It's so easy to give an RSVP. So yeah, I got to say I deleted Facebook a few years ago, and then getting involved in events, you pretty well can't live without it. So I have to take it on board basically. All right, Instagram. So Instagram is also owned by the same company. And Instagram, I guess it's little bit more, it's used more commonly by younger audiences typically. Seems to be much more focused on sharing images and video. Tends to have a little bit less interaction as far as commenting and so on goes. Of course, you can still comment and chat, etc. But yeah, slightly different audiences. And those are both owned by Meta, one company. And the good thing about Meta is Meta has also got a tool that you can basically create a single post that can post the same thing to both your Instagram channel and your Facebook page. So it doesn't duplicate your effort. That's really good. The other thing with Meta is you can, if you get, a burst of motivation and you've got 3 hours spare, you can go and create a whole bunch of content for the next month and then schedule all these posts. So you can then basically not touch it for the next month, but you've still got your scheduled posts that are going out every second day or something like that. So that's all free at a basic level. There's boosted posts and advertising options if you want. So yeah, I think nowadays, yeah, like I say, Facebook is the entry point into this. Down the bottom there, you'll see it's a WordPress logo. That's a website. We'll come back to a little bit to websites later, whether they're required or not. Fair bit more effort to get a website up and running than it is a Facebook page and a Facebook group. It definitely has its place. It's definitely got massive advantages in certain things, but it's not for everyone. So yeah, I would say the most common one there is Facebook. Almost every group I know has got some type of Facebook presence. And when they do delve more and more into online and online presence, then they would probably take that kind of pathway, the Facebook first, then Instagram, and then probably get a website, possibly a WordPress website. So question there, do you mean posting on Meta? Can send posts to Facebook and Instagram? Yes, that's right. Yep, you can do that. So thanks, Patricia, for answering that for me. What else have we got? Productivity and collaboration. Now, two main things we've got here. So if you're a Google person, you would tend to use Google Docs and Google Calendar and things like Google Meet, Google Sheets. There's all a whole suite of Google tools that you can use. A whole bunch of them are free, and for community groups, you can't beat free. And so, yeah, I would say that's what Town Team Movement use as our primary tool set that the whole team uses. So you create one account, you get access to all of those tools across the board. You don't have to go and create separate logins for different things. And then, of course, there's the Microsoft Suite, 365 nowadays it's called. So that's the big alternative, Microsoft or Google. Often you want both. Now, the other thing is, so things like Teams, they're included in that. So instead of Zoom, you could use Teams if you're part of Microsoft. And Google also has Google Meet, which is an equivalent to Teams or Zoom. So now the other thing is Google, Google tends to be free by default. Microsoft tends to be not free. However, there are not-for-profit programs that both Google and Microsoft have. They're relatively easy to access. I think Microsoft, you might need an ABN. I haven't really delved into doing that with an unincorporated group, but definitely I've managed to achieve it with multiple organizations that I'm part of, getting access to those free programs. So if you want to use Microsoft, then don't assume that you're going to have to pay money for it. Do a little bit of groundwork and find out what your options are. I guess in the broad category of productivity and collaboration, there is Zoom, and there's a bunch of other tools like Zoom. There's also things for event management and ticketing, which is really useful, like Eventbrite or Humanitics or Try Booking, if you want to run an event where you're charging for it. So they'll factor in they'll collect money for you by credit card payments. They'll pay that out to you. One thing I would say to look out for these is the transaction fees. Don't get caught out of losing a big chunk of your cash because of the high transaction fees. I find if you're charging for events, then Try Booking or Humanitics seem like the best value. Now, the other good thing about using these types of platforms for events is that they do send event reminders. So that can make your life easier as well. You don't have to remember to send out email reminders of everybody that's coming along. So yeah, in terms of the winner in this one, I would say Google is would be my default to go for yeah, community groups and getting a platform on board for your community group, community organization. Microsoft, in terms of quality of product, is great. Tends to end up being slightly more complicated and slightly more expensive. Venue hire, is there a platform to put that online? Very good question. There is actually. Ooh, I'm going to strain my brain to remember this. There is definitely a booking platform for Space to Co. That's what it's called. So yeah, there you go. Thanks, Arlene, for answering that question. Checking for not-for-profit pricing, yes, definitely do that. Now, cloud storage, what would I use for this, or what are other groups using? I think that very much depends on, are you using Microsoft or are you using Google? So if you're using Google, Google Drive. If you're using Microsoft, there's OneDrive. There's also Dropbox as the main player in that space. But if you're already on the Google Suite or Microsoft Suite, then you probably use that one by default. Oh, interesting there that Skedar is a room hire booking system. That's interesting. I've not heard of that, but sounds good. Yeah, so any of these cloud storage providers do well. I know Google Drive, yeah, there's a free tier. Dropbox is a free tier. I think it's something like 2 GB, something like that. It's not huge. So yeah, I think a lot of these products, by the way, they do have their free tiers and their paid tiers. So they'll give you basic access for free, but there are limitations on it. So Zoom is one of those. If you've used Zoom yourself as a community group, you'll know that you can get a 40-minute meetings for free. And if you want to hold meetings beyond 40 minutes, you've either got to schedule 2 separate meetings with 2 separate meeting IDs, or you've got to upgrade to the paid version. Personally, I like meetings to generally keep to 40 minutes anyway, so I don't mind being kicked off at 40 minutes. So it stops them dragging on and wasting too much of my time. And then there's iCloud. So if you're a big Apple user, you get iCloud as part of that. I find whilst that's great for personal use, not so good for collaboration. And so yeah, but I do still use it myself. Okay, so I will give the winner there to probably slightly to Google Drive, but OneDrive also. It really depends on which platform you're part of. Okay, now next up, what are most groups using to make pretty flyers and stuff? So what are things that are easy to use and we can do design stuff with? Personally, I don't think you can really go past Canva. I mean, I know there's quite a few design tools out there, but Canva nowadays is so easy to use. It's got good free options if you're not on the paid tier. And it's easy to start using, but it's also becoming really powerful for a whole bunch of things. So if you're looking at developing flyers for your group, they have a whole pile of templates that you can use. You don't have to be a designer yourself. You can essentially use a template and then basically go from adapt what they've got. Creating artwork, that's getting better and better on that. Creating logos, there's some good AI components to Canva you can use. Signage for events. It's really easy to mock up different things and send them off to a printer or something. And even Canva themselves have some different suppliers that they can hook you directly in with printing. Even nowadays, videos, there's some really good video editors, so you can do highlights and promo types of videos very quickly. Yeah. There's a quick question there. Any suggestions for membership systems? In terms of free, I don't know that off the top of my head. But there is one called hang on, I've got a mental blank on that one. I'll come back to that one later. Back to Canva. So this logo that I've just shown you here, that's when I mocked up using a feature in Canva that was an AI feature. So literally that was describing what I wanted to create. Can you please create me a new logo for my Angelo Street Town Team, which is based in South Perth? Can you make it nice and bright and fun? And that was pretty much what it did for me. I did make some minor tweaks to that. Another one I did over there, that was Maddington Local Community Town Team. It's another new town team. Yeah, so similar type of prompt. And it comes up with, it gives you four options, which you can then obviously pick one of those and run with it, or you can go back and say, actually, I need it more like this, and they'll do you another version. I think that feature might actually be part of the Canva Premium one. Um, so yeah, and you don't, just because it's a subscription for Canva, you can pay by the month. So if you just need access to the premium options just for 1 month, sign up for 1 month, and then stop your subscription after that. Um, I showed this one that generate videos instantly. This one's really cool. You can basically describe what you need and it will generate fully AI generated video. Have a play with that. And there's a little tab that appeared on the left called Dream Lab on Canva. That's how I created these logos. I think that might be a premium feature, but that's where they're hidden. And there are some AI features hidden in multiple parts of Canva. Or someone's just saying Canva Pro is the version's free for not-for-profits. So that's great. Yeah, so maybe again, look into that. All right, so that's Canva. What else are people using? So what are people using when they need help writing grant applications and maybe some clever marketing skills? We're not all writers, let's face it, I'm not. But with the right tools, you can get a good result. So what do you know? ChatGPT. I'm sure most of you have already played with ChatGPT when it comes to creating some wording for different things that you're struggling with. But if we delve in a little bit more, there's quite a different, few ways we can use this. ChatGPT and other tools like ChatGPT to create more than just a simple summary on something. So if we were to ask a question about, how will my community event align with the strategic objectives for my local government, for example, whilst that prompt in itself is way too simple to probably get you a good result, the sort of things you can delve into are probably stuff you hadn't previously considered with ChatGPT. I'll come back to another example of later on how we might be able to use ChatGPT to get some really powerful results. Okay, now coming back to the website kind of question, if you do go down the route of wanting a website, firstly, I'll ask, you need to consider why you want a website, because it's not super simple. It's not super complex either, mind you, but there are a few steps to it. So what we need to get a website live, we definitely need a domain name. So that's your, mycommunitygroup.com. There's considerations in there like, is it a .com? Is it a .com.au? Is it a .asn.au? Is it a .org.au? Each of those has those subdomains have their own requirements. So if you're a .com.au, for example, you're supposed to be a registered business in Australia, and you'll probably need some kind of proof of that to be able to get approval to get that domain name. .asn.au is pretty simple to get. A .org.au, that's more for not-for-profits. Again, so if you're an incorporated body like a P&C or something like that, then you can show them quite easily that you're incorporated. So there's considerations there around domain name, also cost as well. They're different prices depending on what they are. Okay, so you've got a domain name, then you need somewhere to put your website. So essentially it's a computer somewhere on the internet that is going to host your website. So you need to pay for that. That's called web hosting. Now, you've got a computer to put your website on. What are you going to put on there? So you can, if you're a HTML and JavaScript expert, you can code the whole thing from scratch, but I'm sure there's not many of you here that fit into that category. So most of you would end up going with a website platform like WordPress. There's quite a few different platforms out there. WordPress is the most common by far. And my advice to you is don't reinvent the wheel. Just go with a platform that is well used around the world and proven. So how that works is with WordPress is you would have a nowadays you actually just get some web hosting that includes a WordPress installation, so you don't have to do the installation. But when you start up your WordPress to begin with, it's basically asks you to choose a theme, and that's basically look and feel. So they'll have a bunch of themes, and you pick one you like, and then that's by default what your website looks like. It might be different colors, fonts, and layouts, and where this stuff sits on the page. Okay, and then once you've done that, so some options they have are also website builders where they have a bit of a wizard type of experience. So it steps you through what you need, like pick your colors and fonts. Is it like what do you want your website for? Is it an e-commerce store? Is it an event thing? Is it, an online, a blog or something? So you use the website builder to sort of craft that for you. And then that's sort of, you've then got essentially a blank website that then you have to add your content into. So on your homepage, then you can edit what it displays. Instead of it all being written in Latin, then you can change it to, welcome to my community group, upload your photos, etc. Okay, and then as well as that, nowadays most websites, you would have some other additional application on there. So it might be a web form that you submit your application to become a member, or it might be, I want to register for this event that you're running, or it might be that you've got a merch store that you're selling t-shirts to your community group. WordPress has plugins that you can install, and there's whole stores of plugins with tens of thousands of plugins. So if you don't need a software developer to go develop you these things, they're already developed all over the place. You can just search for, I need a e-commerce store, and then there's all these options that just drop in and pre-configure onto your WordPress website, and then you're off and running. So there isn't just WordPress for this. There's many, many different options. Wix.com is one that is easy to use. It's got a free tier. Yeah, it's worth having a look at. GoDaddy has the full suite. So you can actually, with GoDaddy, you can actually start the process where you just look for your domain name, and then it says, do you want me to do the WordPress hosting package? Yes. And then it steps you through the whole thing. So you've got it all connected up, and all these pieces get built together in one. That Ionos option there is also a similar type of package to that. So, if you're really interested in this, or actually, I think we're already contemplating doing a whole separate webinar on this. Someone's mentioned there Weebly. That's just, yeah, is great to use. I've also used Weebly. They're very good. And Weebly I found are quite similar to Wix. So yeah, definitely look into Weebly as well. I found that quite good. Okay, what's really important for my group? It's all well and good for me to tell you 100 different IT tech tools that you could use, but we're not using tech for the sake of it. What are we actually trying to achieve with this? What I think, in my experience, is important. So is setting up your group for efficiency. So you're trying to save time. So we need to make sure things work well. They don't waste people's time, including our own time. So you really want to keep things simple and efficient and easy to use, rather than just having, 100 different tools and it's just really complex. So simple and well organized. And when, well organized, so this is not really a choice of tool, this is more how you use it. So things like setting up folder structures. If you're using Google Drive or OneDrive for your folders, and you've got 4 or 5 other team members that are also accessing those, maybe spend 5 or 10 minutes in your group chatting about what's the best folder structure to keep this simple and to make this easy to understand, so that anyone can go in and understand that folder structure. And that includes file naming. So, keeping file names concise and sort of consistent in how we do it. Again, that's probably a discussion, 5 or 10-minute discussion with your group. Even things like account naming. So things like, you could go and get 3 or 4 free Gmail accounts. It might be, mycommunitygroup.president@gmail.com, mycommunitygroup.secretary@gmail.com, mycommunitygroup.treasurer@gmail.com, or something like that. So come up with some consistency in there, rather than, the first account, the secretaries being Mary at iinet, and then the president being Jimmy@outlook.com, and the third being something else. These sorts of things can really make your life easier down the track, and it doesn't really take much time to give it some thought in the beginning. We need to set ourselves up to collaborate, because we all get burnt out as volunteers. So we want to share the load, and we want to collaborate and be effective and interact well with our fellow community group members. So do we need to train people when we introduce these tools? Look at who's involved in this stuff and what their capability level is and what they have access to. So you might have free access to some premium Office 365 membership, and it's got some amazing tools in it, but if the rest of your team can't access those, it's probably not going to be very easy for you to share the load. And then it might force you into some not so good habits, like, emailing around in a Word document and get something to edit it and then email it back. And then you end up with multiple versions of something that, just challenging kinds of things like that. So, that type of example, you could use features like track changes in Word to share and collaborate on something. But it might require a 10-minute training session with people. If I've never used track changes before in Word, I can show my team that in 10 minutes on how that works. And then suddenly they're all working on the same document, and everyone can help out. Do we have things documented well? So this is not just creating a document explaining everything in one. This is things like if you've got an Excel spreadsheet that you use to manage something, then use notes in those Excel cells to explain what that is and how you calculated that and what any assumptions are about that. Equally, if you've got the folder structure where you've got folders that you don't necessarily use frequently, create a document in there that just says read me, and it might just be a Word document that just, yeah, read me. And then you open it and it says, I created this document because once a year we have to do this process and this is how we do it, or something like that. So they understand the purpose of the folder. So think about documenting what you're doing. Also, just maybe one document that lists all these different platforms that you're using. Password management is another issue. I wouldn't necessarily recommend putting that all into one online document like that, but potentially use a password manager. Next one is, are we using the tools that most will want to use and can use? So I guess that's back to the question of the skill set that people have, the availability and access to paid subscriptions to things. But you might love a tool, but you might need to talk to the rest of your team and work out, is that what they want to use? Generally, these things tend to be led by the person with the most energy. So often it's the founder of a group, or sometimes it's the most tech savvy person, but sometimes tech savvy people mean IT nerds, probably like me to some extent, that like to use kind of complex, cool things, but that's not what the average person wants to use because they're a little bit trickier to learn. Someone just asked, is Password Manager an app? There is a password manager called Password Manager, but yeah, there's plenty more if you want to look on the App Store or something like that. Next thing, are key roles shared or accessible by multiple people? So if you're running a community group with some 4 or 5 key people, have we got a bottleneck in our system? Does everything have to go through one person and they've just got one account? And if they don't respond, our whole community group shuts down for a week or whatever it is. I'd recommend having generic accounts that you can share the password to. So you have 2 or 3 sets of eyes that check a main email account. And then that way we can be responsive and also, check the sent items of that account to know what was done by someone else, even if you can't get hold of them. So that's a way to remove bottlenecks in our organization. And as I mentioned briefly before, succession planning, let's face it, we're not all here forever. One day you're not going to be running this thing. Wouldn't it be good to be able to set things up from the outset where you can easily hand things off to people that have, that want to take them on? So will my successor be able to understand the tech that we use and how we organize things? So that sort of goes back a little bit to the choice of the different tools you use, and how well documented they are. And also, I guess, how you train them in the succession and handover. But generally speaking, keeping things simple and logical would be a much easier way to make sure that you can hand that over to someone that can want to take it on. Are we choosing tools for today or tomorrow? It might be easy to use your long-standing personal email account today, but that's not going to have much of a life on it. You need to probably do some of that work up front, set up something in the proper way, even if it is a basic Gmail account, so we can then again hand that over to people further down the track. I've got to move along because we're falling a little bit behind time. I know like I said, there's lots to cover here. How can I level up my tech easily? So what's some low-hanging fruit here? One of the things that I see people doing, so one of the things they do to manage their list of contacts. So I'd say if you're currently using, I've got Facebook followers, people that like my stuff. I've got Facebook group members. I've got WhatsApp groups. I've got Messenger chats. I've got my SMS list, and I've even got an email list. Have you got all those groups, those people in one place? Because if you don't, then it's really hard to just go, hey, send a message out to my people and get a response. If you don't have that, that's so cumbersome and painful and time consuming. So if you leveled up using a single contact list using an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet or something like that. It'll probably initially be a one-off task to try and translate that all into one document, one shared document on a cloud drive that's accessible to your team. Then suddenly you have a single point. And obviously that requires a little bit of discipline and keeping that updated. But at least it's a single point of all your contacts. And that's really quite valuable and powerful. And if you can get there, then you can go to the next level of using something like MailChimp. Put all of those contacts into a MailChimp audience. MailChimp does have a free tier that you can use, and then you can do a broadcast email to all of them easily. And then what you can do is you can add a MailChimp sign up to say your Facebook page or your website or even at the bottom of your email signature where people want to join your mailing list. That becomes your critical thing to manage. Google Contacts is a good question there, Ian. Have used Google Contacts in the past. I haven't had recent experience on it. It might be worth looking into on how well that's managed. I'm sure it's possible to use that as a way to manage contacts, but yeah, don't have any direct recent experience on that. If you're then going to go to the next level, and probably where you've got some money to spend on it, the next thing to do is go to a CRM type of platform like Monday.com, like HubSpot. And there's a million more CRM type of platforms out there, but that type of stuff can be really good, but it's probably not for your small community orgs. It's probably more for ones that have a bit of a budget to spend on it, like a sports club or something like that. I had used Monday.com quite a bit. It actually does a pretty good job of a simple to use app that can be a CRM, but then it can evolve into a flexible type of project management type of system. Very customizable. Okay, next we've got some AI tools. Okay, I mentioned ChatGPT, some similar types of things. So ChatGPT is something called an LLM, large language model. Other LLMs, so Claude, there's Copilot, which is Microsoft. Copilot's a little bit different in that it sort of meshes Bing search with an LLM in one. DeepSeek, you might have heard that in recent times. Kind of a controversial alternative to ChatGPT that's come out of China. Google Gemini, and another one called Google Notebook LM, which I think is a pretty special one, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. What could we use these for? So developing a proposal is really good. So ask, say, a ChatGPT to go, how would I lay out a proposal? What kind of sections and chapters would I use about this? So when you're writing these prompts, and by the way, this whole thing of prompting is called prompt engineering. If you want to get good at it, there's quite a lot of stuff out there on prompt engineering. It gets really complex, but it can also be pretty simple. In short, a short summary is just describe exactly what you want, even if you have to use 1 or 2 paragraphs to do it. So talk about what this proposal is for, who you are, give it some context, and then it will basically give you a document kind of structure that you can then go and tackle in each paragraph by paragraph. So once you've done that, you'll have a structure. You can then start writing, either get it to write each chapter, or you can just start writing it because you might know it anyway, what you're trying to write. But if you're struggling a little bit on one of those chapters, just drop that in and go, can you reword this in a way that works better? Then, that's a good way to save you time. One of the things I love about it is you can go, hey, can you make it sound more fun? Or, you know what, that's too long. Can you make it more concise? I needed about 200 words. So that sort of stuff would take you a long time to do. So really treat it like it's your assistant, right? If it was a person sitting next to you doing it, pretty much treat it how you would treat them. You can also generate images. Often when we're doing these kind of proposals and things, you need to find the relevant photo or something. You can get it to generate images quite quickly. So Copilot, I find, is really good for that. Nice and fast. And you can even, when you finish writing your proposal, your document, you can go, hey, I've just written this proposal. Here it is, and paste your text in or upload the document. Can you make it better? What suggestions do you have for making this better? Even that alone is like having just someone to critique it for you. And then finally on this sort of slide here is Google Notebook LM is a really amazing tool. You can basically use, I'm trying to write a grant proposal, and it's, I might be asking for $100,000 for something. and they want it to align to various other organizations' strategic plans and your own local government strategic plan and this, that, and the other, you can upload a whole bunch of documents to it and say, and also websites. So say, look at the Town Team Movement website, look at the City of Vincent strategic plan, look at the state government, Department of Transport strategic plan, and also just check out the Department of Transport's website. I'm trying to write a proposal for this. Can you make sure that you come up with something that aligns to all of those relevant strategic plans? So it will then do that for you, and it will even reference where it actually aligns. So you can go, that aligns to section 1.4 of the Department of Transport Strategic Plan 2022 to 2029. And so it's really, really powerful and can save you so much time. So have a look at that, Google Notebook LM. Daniel, you're right. Would be great to see short demos. Today we're extremely short of time, so I was just going to touch on this. One of the things I'm going to ask you a little bit later is some feedback on what you would like to see in more depth. Okay, another one. This is a really easy one to do and to take. In fact, our Town Team Movement team has started using Firefly's AI. Fireflies, you may have noticed, has been invited to this meeting. It actually records your meetings and it creates the text transcript of it. It does a summary at the end of each meeting and emails it to you. It summarizes the key points. It adds actions of what people agreed to, including due dates. And then it also has a bot that you can write to called Fred. And so you can ask Fred, hey, Fred, what did they say about the due date on that project that we had discussed? It basically drills into that and gives you a summary of that. And then you can also go back and look at the video of the meeting or the text transcript. You can even go and remove sections of video and or the transcript if you want to. Because often sometimes people talk about irrelevant things in meetings, so it's quite handy for that. Definitely go and do it. It's got a free tier and it's really cool. I think I described all that anyway. Oops. I'm running out of time, but this is another one called BotPress, which is quite an easy way to actually add a chat bot to your organization, so your website. I had to play with this. I guess bear in mind, I do have a little bit of a background in IT, but it took me about 15, 20 minutes to create a chat bot that could tap into all of the content from our Town Team and answer questions about it. So that's called BotPress. Go and have a look at that if you get a chance. Sort of getting towards the end here, but just some points to note with AI in general. Data privacy and security, it can be an issue. So most free tools will harvest your data if you need, and that data might then appear other places around the world. If you don't want that to happen, there are options to do that. So there are AI tools that don't share your data more widely. So it requires a bit of investigation. You've probably seen ChatGPT does hallucinate, or all AI systems and LLMs do hallucinate. So make sure you check everything before it goes anywhere public. And an interesting thing that we've come across recently, there's been reported around the world about the power consumption and the water consumption of AI systems, and that they're significantly higher than standard, say, Google search or things like that. I don't know what to do about that in terms of how we adjust our use of AI and whether we support it. I guess it's just something to be aware of. Look into it, do your own kind of reading on what you think about that. And I suppose it also pertains to general, other issues around AI, and that's why I've got the Terminator bot here. What we think, what does AI mean for the world going ahead? I'm not making any comments. So yes, ethics. That's what I'm talking about here. Not commenting on that, but I'm saying it's a consideration that you probably need to look into. Another comment, tools like ChatGPT, they're a great way to learn anything. Just treat it like an expert you've got access to. It's changing really, really rapidly right now. So I'm finding it's easier to go to different places. There's a place I found called Futurepedia. They're introducing and reviewing AI tools all the time. So instead of you doing your own hunting, they do the hunting for you. And they even have a lot of education, things on how to use stuff, which is quite handy. So it's a big world of tech. This looks quite daunting, but we've pretty much talked about almost all of these things on the screen here. But I guess my message to you is the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. So if you are a little bit bombarded and feel overwhelmed by all these tools, Then go back to our core, the first few slides we had there. What are the basics you need? You don't have to use all these things. They are out there. You might just want to be selective in what you take on. Yeah, don't try not to be overwhelmed, but you can definitely make some good level ups with your community group. We are nearly running out of time, but any questions that you haven't asked already, just chuck on the chat now. This will be available. This video, this recording, we'll put this up on the Act Local website. So it will be available in the next couple of days. So yeah, feel free to do that. One of the things I'm really keen for, by the way, before I go on to that, this is our contact details of our Act Local team within Town Team Movement. So we've got Patricia, who's a Pilbara person. We've got Esther in the Wheat Belt. We've got Sarah Jane and West Jay in Kalgoorlie Boulder. So feel free to reach out to those people. Or I'm in Perth across the program. But we'd love your feedback. If you want to use that QR code now, one of those things that we're asking for is, do you like these types of sessions? What else? What else would you like to see? We've got a whole series of webinars coming up that we're still working on the content for. So if there's anything specific, tech related or otherwise, but really this is about supporting volunteers and organisations that support volunteers. So if you've got any wishes on that, then get in touch. Yeah, thanks very much. And in terms of these other questions, can you contact another branch? You can. These people love to chat, as we all do. So feel free to reach out. Yes, and Lisa's got a good mention there about the Cyber Safety Commissioner tech. That's really good, actually. I've been to that a lot, the eSafety Commissioner, so esafety.gov.au. Yes, and yes, click on the QR code if you want to provide the feedback, as in you need to use your phone to do that. Otherwise, if you just follow that tiny URL website, so tinyurl.com/get-techie-feedback, you'll be able to issue your feedback through there. All right, I've just hit the 1 hour mark, so I'm still here, but I don't want to keep you. So feel free to go now. Thanks for your time, but I'm going to hang around and chat some more if anyone's got some questions.
Maybe we can answer some of the questions. So there is interest in having separate webinar on AI. We're definitely working on it. So please follow us.
Yeah, I'd love to do a separate AI one. There's so much content there I could do.
With QR code, you just need to use your camera in your phone and it will take you directly to the survey, or just click the link or copy the link into your browser.
In fact, I can probably even drop the
in
link
the chat, yeah.
in the chat now. So
Fireflies. So it records all the discussion. It takes notes from all the discussion. So if it's in the room and online, it will be it will take minutes and also actions.
there's a question about Google Chat. So yes, Google Chat we do use. So actually, Town Team Movement use that a lot. It's probably not as commonly used in my experience by different community groups. However, it works well. It's great. I totally recommend it. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe a little bit more around fireflies, Rory. There is
yeah. So yeah, fireflies. I just found that, especially for small meeting groups, where you always have that battle of who's going to write the minutes, and it means that if you've got 4 or 5 people in a meeting, then one of them's taken out by writing minutes, and they don't really contribute so much. So now, since I've had fireflies, I just get fireflies to essentially write the minutes, and then I can fully contribute to and focus on the conversation going on. And the other thing I love about it is that Ask Fred feature where you, and especially actually if you didn't turn up to the meeting, you couldn't make it, you can go, I wonder if they talked about that thing I was going to bring up. I actually did this example the other day. There was an issue with a particular supplier at a festival that we've got coming up. And then I just basically typed it into Ask Fred, hey, was there any discussion of this person's name? And then they basically, at the 23-minute mark, this was what was said. So that's great. And then I could go straight to the transcript and read it word for word, but they also provided a summary of what was said. Tony, now to get my Lions members average age over 65 to use any of these tools. Yeah, it's a challenge to different age groups, but I have to say I've seen some really amazing leaps forward from people with the right type of attitude on taking on tech. And it doesn't always come from where you expect it to come from. Sometimes people total converts once they see one thing that where they suddenly the light goes on and they see the value in it and they go, oh, what else could I do? So yeah, always an interesting challenge. Does Fireflies turn into a Word or Google Doc for storage? What Fireflies does is it actually gives you a login. So you got your dashboard, your Fireflies dashboard. But with any of the stuff, it's all text stuff that you could copy. So if you wanted it in a Word doc and save it in a drive, you could do that. Keep your questions coming if you've got them. I think one of the things I think we discussed before today around this is I didn't really show you any actual images of the software or so on, or how-tos. So I'm imagining that people will want to see some specific, this is what it looks like, this is how it works. So yeah, if that's of interest to you, then drop that in the feedback.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
perhaps one question from my side. Someone from the county movement, I think Steen mentioned that Notebook LM is great for grant application.
Yeah.
So how so what kind of feature make it stand out? Like generating
What's good about it?
who can generate text for you?
So what's good about it is finding the alignment of what they're asking for in the grant guidelines. So if they say, say you're seeking funding for an event, and they'll say, how does this event align with, show us how this event aligns with relevant stakeholder strategic plans, for example. So you can basically look at every relevant organization that is, geographically aligned or purpose aligned or whatever, and you can if you can find their generally you can find strategic plans and other relevant documents online quite easily. So you can download those documents, upload them to Google LM, and then you can say, including all the resources here, find me where there are alignments, and it will say, all right, in this plan section 1.3, here's an alignment. And then it can drag it in from multiple documents. And what I love about it is you can use, I think you can upload like 50 PDFs or something like that, but you can also upload whole websites, or not upload the website, link it to a website. So it will trawl through the whole website of content and find it for you and then bring it back in a way that you've got it. And it keeps the context, so you can keep asking it, I'll refine that, make it shorter. Oh, it doesn't sound like you've included anything from this. Is there any alignment on that document? And it does all that legwork for you, so you can save days of work.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I also, by the way, one other thing with that is I believe, and you might want to check yourself, I believe it doesn't actually share any of your content more broadly. It's a private kind of sandbox. So yeah.
I'm curious to know, Rory, whether that might be able to produce some event management plans or risk management plans and things like that too for any groups or people who are needing those kinds of things, because we got some of those templates. Any thoughts on that front, Rory?
Yeah, absolutely. So you could even imagine, so at a basic level, just you probably use ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever those to go and create you a generic kind of event management plan if you wanted to. But I'd expect what you would be able to do with Google LM would be to upload an example plan from another event, and then you sit there and describe your event you're running and go, hey, I need an event management plan. Can you use the same kind of format as you did in that document over there? And then write it all for me. And then basically it can then apply your ideas and thoughts, and then drop it into the template essentially that it creates from your example plan. Yeah, even potentially another way I found this the other day was I had a Canva document that I was working on that had a whole bunch of information on it. It was, and what I did, I exported that to a PDF, and then I uploaded it I think this I actually did this in DeepSeek. I uploaded it to DeepSeek and go, can you turn this into like web page content? So it basically literally created me a HTML code that I could drop into my WordPress page based on a PDF, like Canva document. And it was like, tell you what, it did a pretty good job. Still had to play around with it to get it right. But yeah, it was pretty amazing what it could achieve. So that's what I find. The more I play with these AI tools, the more I think you just have to change the way you work and think, how could I do this, and try not to think about doing things the same old way. Like every time you do something, like, is there a different way I could achieve this? And I think that's really what'll change as all these tools become more mainstream, is that people need to relearn how to do stuff. Interesting, Ian's comments about the anti-AI bias and it being scary. Yeah, I can't deny that a lot of this stuff is like, oh, what does the future hold in this regard? It is a bit scary at times. But the more I look into this, the more I think that what we do, essentially we're probably just, it's not necessarily going to be a job killer. I think my prediction on this is it'll be more like we'll just do more with less resources, because I can now do the job of 4 or 5 people using these tools. A bit like a generation ago, if I knew how to use Excel, from in Windows 95, if I was a gun at Excel, I could probably do the work of 3 or 4 accountants from 10 or 20 years prior. I feel like it's the same. Okay, it might be leveling up in terms of a bit of exponential growth in that regard, and there's a hell of a lot of unknowns. But I feel like I'm not only wary now, I'm also excited about the opportunities. All right. Are there any final questions before we wrap up? Okay, so thanks, guys. Really appreciate it today. I know I just spewed out a lot of information. It wasn't very interactive, but I think in future sessions, I'd like to run some more interactivity, some breaking out into some breakout rooms and get some discussion going if that's of interest. But yeah, once again, if you want to provide any kind of feedback on what you're looking for and what you found of value, then that would be very useful. So thanks very much. I'll see you later.